Welcome to a Wednesday edition of Beyond the Arc. I'm John Gonzalez alongside for the first time making his BTA debut from CBS Sports. He's one of our acclaimed, accomplished NBA writers, one of my favorite follows on Twitter as well. Sam Quinn is here. Sam, we're doing it. We finally had you on the show.
John, it is a long time coming, and I am excited to be here.
Yeah, this is awesome. Like I said, you and I interact, through work and on social media platforms, but first time we get to do the show together. Later in the show, we're going to discuss Summer League impressions so far. We were just laughing about Alex Sarr from last night. Poor Alex Sarr, womp womp, basically is the line from last night. And we're going to discuss David Griffin explaining why Brandon Ingram, who a lot of people thought would be on the move, probably isn't going anywhere right now. Our colleague James Herbert wrote a really good piece explaining that. But first, we just got done watching Team USA. Reports of their, I guess, almost demise were a little exaggerated here. Game 3 for the U.S. First quarter didn't look great, Sam, and then they end up pulling away and beating Serbia 105-79. Easily their biggest test so far. We're going to have to talk about this in abstract sort of generalities here because the Team USA website is a total and utter abomination, and you can't get stats from it in real time. Makes no sense to me, but broad strokes here. What'd you think?
Yeah, man, I am proud to be an American because at least I have AD. Oh, my God. I knew that Anthony Davis playing in this setting was going to be good. Obviously, you have, the lighter rules when it comes to goaltending. You can pluck the ball off the rim. There's no defensive 3 seconds. I knew Anthony Davis was going to be good in the FIBA setting. Anthony Davis looked like, oh my God, it's just such a reminder of how good he was defense. I mean, he still is great defensively in the NBA, don't get me wrong. But you think back to how good the 2020 and the 2021 Lakers were when they had all these great perimeter defenders in front of AD, when he got to play a lot of power forward, work as a weak side rim protector more than just a standard center. He was probably the best defensive player in the NBA then. He might still be now, but it's just a reminder of how incredible this guy is when you give him some semblance of defensive help. That was one of the best games I think I've seen him play in years. He was incredible.
I believe, and again, this is just from what I heard on the broadcast, 7.6 rebounds and 6 blocks. We'll see if they update the box score a little bit later. He looked just comfortable. It's amazing what happens when you surround him with really good players and he can just focus on being an incredible defender. And then the offense sort of flows from that. I thought his defense was exceptional. This brings us also, though, to the extent that there are problems with Team USA, people were sort of pearl clutching after the Australia game. And the first 2 games weren't great for Joel Embiid. He didn't look great again tonight. I'm not worried about this team at all. I'm not worried about Joel Embiid at all. But to the extent that you have any concern about this team, is Embiid part of it?
Yeah, I mean, there are a few things, right? Individual shot creation is just not at a premium on Team USA in the way that it is in the NBA. Like having Joel Embiid take 1 million shots and draw 1 million fouls, really, really valuable in an NBA setting where there just isn't that much scoring. Team USA has all of the scoring it'll ever need. So suddenly Anthony Davis being way more athletic, being way more versatile defensively, that stands out a lot more. That's why Drew Holiday started one of these games and is probably going to play a big role in this team, even though there are a lot more accomplished players on the roster. So Joel Embiid scoring doesn't mean as much. It's not as good a fit with the other guys on this roster, right? Part of the reason why I might advise starting Anthony Davis is that he at least has some continuity with LeBron. Him and LeBron have played on the same NBA team for 5 years. It's kind of amazing to say this, but they're the longest tenured NBA teammates on Team USA. It feels like in the grand scheme of LeBron's career, that's nothing, but there's just no continuity here. You could have a little bit more of a defined identity if you run your offense through a lot of the LeBron AD 2-man game. You have spacing, obviously, with Steph, with whoever they put in the other perimeter spots. I kind of just look at Joel Embiid and I say he's here for a few very specific matchups. Serbia was supposed to be one of them. Wanted the much bulkier big man to throw at Jokic. As it turned out, Anthony Davis was so good defensively. He was fine. Jokic didn't kill him. I thought Jokic looked, frankly, much better against Joel Embiid. He missed a couple of easy finishes, especially in the first quarter. But I'm fine having Embiid on this roster. I think whenever you have Joel Embiid on your team and on the floor, he's at his most valuable where everything is running through him. And there's just nobody that you're going to do that for as Team USA, right? That's why Tyrese Halliburton looks good when he comes off of the bench.
Sure.
That's why Drew Holiday is so valuable. Like, Team USA doesn't need anybody to be like the heliocentric center of this offense. They need everybody to do a little bit. And it's just really hard to ask Joel Embiid to do role player stuff.
It is, and it's weird. I'm still also, though, with you that I'd be fine if they switch out and go with AD in the starting lineup. I was a little surprised because, to your point about how Embiid is sort of on this roster's, I mean, look, he's an MVP and he's a very good basketball player. He's one of the probably 5 best basketball players in the NBA, but he's on this team for some very specific matchups. And I was with you that I thought that this was one of them because traditionally he has fared pretty well against Jokic, whereas AD is we've seen him struggle. Look, everybody struggles against Jokic. He's really difficult to defend. But I would have anticipated that. Oh, okay, this is going to be one of those where Embiid shines a little bit. Other concerns that people had previously through the first 2 games: Steph Curry hadn't been very aggressive, had only fired up 13 shots over the first 2 games. Today, he comes out, has 5 in the first quarter, looks really good. I believe, again, that he was the leading scorer. We'll just have to like ballpark that. You made a very funny joke to me when we were texting about how bad the box score is and saying he had somewhere between 10 and 80 something points. He was good tonight, though. It looked like he felt more comfortable.
Yeah, I'd also say it's just really beneficial to have somebody who Steve Kerr has coached for a long time, right? Like, obviously, you're not actually going to run the super complex motion offense that Golden State runs, but having somebody with a little bit of comfort as a super duper star who doesn't need the ball super often is, again, really valuable in a Team USA setting where, like, oh, LeBron can play point guard. It's fine. Like, Tatum can handle the ball for his several stretches. Like, all these guys who need to have the ball in their hand a lot, Steph is cool just running around screens and, like, creating value in other ways. That said, like, today, Steph just kind of, especially early on, was much more aggressive, had the ball in his hands a lot more. Pretty valuable when you can have the greatest off-ball player of all time also just decide, you know what, I'm going to get us 20 quick points today.
Yeah. You had mentioned something earlier that I wanted to just like dig into a little bit, how, the style of play with the NBA and FIBA is different. And we saw a little bit of that in the first 2 games where I thought that the Team USA, like the offense it was fairly ISO heavy. I mean, and had a lot of like 1-on-5 hero ball moments. Today, I thought they moved the ball much better, but just for people who might be a little bit more casual or haven't really dug into international basketball, what do you think the adjustments are that they need to make going into the Olympics with the FIBA rules? Because there is, no 3-second violation. We saw teams sort of plant people under the basket. It is a little bit more a slower pace, although today was better for them, a little bit more physical. What else are you looking for as they adjust going into the Olympics?
Yeah, this is why 3-point shooting and ball movement are so important in the FIBA setting, right? Serbia could just pack the paint as much as they wanted and say, we dare you to make threes. When you have Stephen Curry daring you to make threes is usually not a great proposition. But like in the Canada game, for instance, Team USA didn't shoot especially well, especially early on. So the name of the game here is Team USA's big advantage is going to be athleticism and like, can we get out and run? It's why I'm a little bit confused about why they're using Tyrese Halliburton largely as an off-ball spacer. Like, he can do that, but if that was the role you were looking to fill on this team,
why Tyrese Halliburton?
There are a number of other guys who are like, maybe not better at that, but more used to it. Like, the advantage of having Tyrese Halliburton on your team is like, no, he's going to push pace. And we really saw that in the Canada game where like they had those bench lineups. It was Edwards and Halliburton. They were just running all over the floor. And then you have Davis and Adebayo protecting them on defense a little bit. Like, that's the real advantage Team USA has, is that they can just overwhelm you athletically. That really happened in the second half today against Serbia. If they're playing with pace, they can kind of neutralize all of that extra rim protection. But the real way to beat that rim protection is just make a billion threes. They obviously have the talent to do it. It's just going to be a matter of, are the shots going to go in? The Olympics are a single elimination tournament once you get to the knockout stage. So, like, all it takes is one game where, like, Steph is 1 of 6 and Ant is 0 of 5, but, like, Bogdan Bogdanovic made 6 threes. It does make you a little bit nervous. You are more ripe for an upset in the Olympics than you are in the NBA. But, like, Team USA has the tools to play in a variety of different ways. That's why pace is so important, right? Like, you can have a bad shooting night, but if you're so athletic that you're generating a million turnovers and you're playing really fast, you're probably going to be able to generate points against teams that are way less athletic than you.
Yeah, and that's why ostensibly you would think that they have Halliburton on this team, but watching him just stand over there and like launch, catch, and shoot threes, I'm like, what are we doing? What's happening here?
Like,
It
why don't
wasn't
you
a
have
little
Luke Kennard at that point if that's what you want?
Team USA Olympian potential gold medalist Luke Kennard. All right, so you mentioned the different style of play and how it does only take one night. A team could catch them in the knockout stage on a bad night, but they are still the favorites here, right? I mean, like, what other teams are we looking at? I thought Serbia would give them a better game tonight. Maybe maybe that'll change once they get into group play. France obviously is a team that we're looking at. Who do you think would give them the biggest potential problem in the Olympics?
Yeah, Canada is obviously like they have the most shot creation. Now,
Yeah,
Team
the
USA
bigs
won
are a
that game
problem.
pretty handily. I'm still scared of Shea Gilgeous-Alexander and Jamal Murray. Jamal Murray didn't look good in that exhibition. I would think he'll be better, after a whole Olympic tournament when he's a little bit more, I don't want to say in shape, but like maybe his calf is healed a little bit more from the playoffs. And we saw this in the bronze medal game last year where like Dylan Brooks scores 39 points and now we don't have a medal. Like that's what can kind of happen. The teams that scare me the most in this field are the teams that have the most different guys that can be like, wait, who scored 40? Like, who scored 30? What? Like, that's how this tends to go, right? Like, Patty Mills has 41, and suddenly you're out. Canada's the team with the most of those guys. Like, I'm not as worried about France's rim protection as everybody else is because, again, you can beat it with pace. You can beat it with three-point shooting. Team USA can play that way. And, like, look, you might have a bad shooting game, but I would generally bet on Team USA to make its shots more than France. But Canada is the team with the most guys that, like, on any given night, oh, RJ Barrett's making his threes. Like, that's scary. Kelly Olynyk is getting hot. Like, they're the team with the most guys that in a single game setting can just go off and boom, you're out.
Yeah, their guard and wing play is fun and could be dynamic for sure. And SGA is amazing. He's one of my favorite players to watch. They're
big.
big.
The best player on either of those teams. Like,
That's
it's weird
interesting.
for Team USA not to have the best player, but he might be better than anyone on Team USA.
This is great. You should come back more because I was an early adopter of the Oklahoma City Thunder, and I was told by my esteemed co-hosts that I was out over my skis on this. That the young guys needed to learn, and now look at us. We're speaking a common language.
Oh yeah,
it's amazing. All right, we're gonna take a quick break, and then speaking of young people, on the other side, we're gonna give our summer league impressions. I had summer league duty last night for HQ, and woof, it did not go well for Alex Sarr. We'll discuss that on the other side. You're listening to Beyond the Arc. Welcome back to Beyond the Arc. I almost said on the other side on CBS Sports Network because I'm so used to saying that now, but we're not on TV today. We will be on TV eventually, but not today. Sam Quinn is joining us. Ashley and Bill are out. And just a reminder that you can find us wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Please download, subscribe, and leave a review. All right, Summer League impressions here. I mentioned Alex Sarr. Let's start with Alex Sarr. Second overall pick for the Washington Wizards. I had his game for CBS Sports HQ, his first game against Ricochet, whose name is also difficult to say. And in the first game, I thought Alex Sarr did, started out slowly, Sam, and then he came along offensively, and I thought he had a pretty good game. Defensively, I think is where he's going to make his impact immediately for the Wizards because he's big, he's athletic, he can protect the rim. Last night, offensively, though, my Lord, it was awful. He went 0 for 15 against the Blazers. I watched that whole thing. Total rock fight. He threw the most rocks. Did not make a shot. Missed all 7 of his threes. 0 for 2 from the line. Sam, through 3 games in Summer League, he's shooting sub 20% from the floor and 11.8% from 3. This is not good.
Yeah, sometimes you see 0 of 15 in the box score and you think, oh, the shots just didn't go in. No, that's not what happened here. He just played really badly. And I don't really understand how they're using it. Now, I guess it's Summer League, and you just kind of want to say it's a developmental thing, and they're just like letting him do whatever he wants. They want to let him figure out who he's going to be as a player because you would assume with time, at the very least, he's going to be like a good lob finisher, like a good pick and roll player. That's going to come. Like I feel pretty safe just given his athleticism that he's going to get there. So sure, why not? You're the worst team in the NBA. Why not let him just explore the rest of his game? it was really, really ugly. They were letting him play like Kevin Durant and do a lot of self-creating. And like, there were some of those misses that probably should have counted for more than one miss. They were really, really bad. As I watched that game, the two things that really stood out to me are like, just based on the team he's going to, I really hope that they re-sign Tyus Jones. He really needs like a grown-up point guard to put him in the right direction and like throw him lobs. But the reverse of that is that he's going to share a lot of minutes with Jordan Poole and a lot of minutes with Johnny Davis. And just like, if you're a fan of bad basketball, and look, I am a fan of bad basketball, the Wizards were like a high school team trying to play like the Harlem Globetrotters. Like, they're trying their best to be fun and flashy. It was a disaster most of the time. So I think there are going to be just a lot of really, really ugly highlights on that team of him trying to do the Kevin Durant thing that he's clearly not ready to do yet, or maybe ever is going to be capable of. I would probably at least just start with this first year. Let's run a lot of pick and roll and throw you a lot of lobs. The rest we'll figure out as we go. It was not a great start last night. No.
I had the same thought as you, that it looked like he was trying to be KD, and like the gap between Alex Sarr at 19 years old in summer league and like how KD functions is pretty significant. I thought Bob Carrington has looked pretty good. He's a fun player, and I liked Bilal Coulibaly last year, and you know, he's got other things going on right now. But yeah, that Wizards team, it's not looking good for those guys. Also not looking good. This is the obligatory. We need to talk about Bronny James, because Bronny James is ostensibly an NBA player who's playing in summer league, has not looked good. You know, the other day, Jaylen Brown got caught on camera, along with Angel Reese, sitting courtside saying that he doesn't think that Bronny is an NBA player. No kidding. Thinks he should be in the G League, but he won't be because he'll probably be with the Lakers because of LeBron. Also, no kidding. Then he kind of sort of tried to slow walk this thing back. I just think, like, I feel bad for Bronny in a way. I've been on HQ duty for every single one of his games so far. I'm on again tonight. The amount of attention that this kid is getting is completely inordinate. I mean, it does not match up with the skill level. We know why it is, but it's just like last night, for example, the Lakers weren't even playing last night, Sam. And the NBA official Twitter account at 8:15 p.m. Eastern sent out a photo with Bronny that said, "From USC to the Lakers, .. Bronny James !" And I was like, what's happening right now? He's not even on the court tonight, and we're pumping him. Like, I just think it's a disservice to the kid, and he should be in the G League, and this is not looking good.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like, he's sort of having the number 55 overall pick version of Alex Sarr's summer league.
Yes.
Where, like, you can see the defensive promise. The offense is, like, miles and miles away from where it needs to be. The difference is you can exist in the NBA as a really good defensive center that doesn't do anything on offense. Like, that's Bismack Biyombo. Like, that's a long NBA career. Like, Alex Sarr is going to be a good NBA player. He might not be worthy of a number 2 overall pick in the end. He's got to be a good NBA player. If you are like a decent defensive guard that brings nothing to the table on offense, that's not an NBA player. Like, that could change, but like, that's not even Shaq Harrison, because Shaq Harrison is a great defender. Like, and Shaq Harrison hasn't sucked in the NBA. If you're going to be a guard in the NBA that never does anything on offense, you have to be like Tony Allen good to survive, like to actually build a career for yourself. He probably should be in the G League. He probably should just be like, this year should totally be developmental for him. There shouldn't be any thought that he's going to like actually contribute to the Lakers yet. I don't know if he ever can. My philosophy on this is like, when it comes to second round picks, most of the time your success or failure is going to come down to, can you accept a role? Are you coachable? Like, do you have the right attitude? Are you going to work hard? Generally speaking, I think it's safe to say that the son of LeBron James is going to have the right lessons put into his head. All of this extra attention is not going to help him. Like, you're right. He should just be in the G League right now. He's not an NBA level player. Maybe he'll get there, but like, Jaylen Brown isn't wrong. Like, we're all watching.
He's not.
Like, he doesn't look at all like an NBA player. He looks like a maybe possibly okay defensive prospect with a little bit of upside, but he's small too. He's not even 6'2". Like, it's hard to be a defensive guard at 6'2". And then the offense is just like, I guess he's in the right places. Like, he knows how to function with an offense. He just can't put the ball through the net. And that's most of what he's going to need to do on offense. He needs to be a 3-and-D player to succeed in the NBA, right? Like, that's his archetype. That's what he needs to be. There's no 3 yet. and the D is pretty tenuous. So
It is.
yeah, it
And the
doesn't
body
feel like
size,
an NBA player.
the body size is a problem, right? Because as you mentioned, Alex Sarr, I mean, he can have a woeful offensive night and look completely lost and can't throw the ball in the ocean. But physically, he's a big athletic kid who can do a lot of things defensively, up to and including protecting the rim. Bronny is small. He's small in height and he's small just physically, needs to put on serious weight and muscle. I don't know that he's going to grow anymore. If he tops out at 6'2", okay, but you have to get stronger, because even if you are in the right spot, I mean, like, I think it was his first game. I had his first game in the California Classic, and I've mentioned this before on the pod, but it's like really instructive that, you know, he's going up against a Kings kid named Adonis Arms, who looks like a kid named Adonis Arms will look. Just a big physical dude, right? And Bronny got to the right spot and he was making the right play defensively, and then he just got bullied. He just got run over. And I've seen Bronny, you know, the intangibles are kind of there. Like, I've seen him make the extra pass, be in right position, set proper screens, be mindful of how to box out. Like, the little basketball he plays that you get from role players that you're like, that guy knows how to play basketball. Okay, that's great. Those things are good. But if that's all you're bringing, that's not going to be good enough to be an NBA level player, especially as a guard at 6'2". I wanted to mention another guard to you that I have enjoyed watching this in the summer league so far, and that's Reed Sheppard. He's crafty. I mean, like, you want to talk about like offense. That guy, like his hezzy moves, his step backs, like he looks like he's extremely slow, but in the same way that Steve Nash would use the slow down mode to get to his spot in the floor. Like, you don't have to be Tyrese Maxey in the NBA. You can almost use the decel to your advantage a lot of the times, because against other guys who are more athletic. I'm surprised at how good Reed Sheppard has looked.
He got a shout out from Mark Price on Twitter last night, and that felt like really appropriate.
Comp. Yeah.
That is like, I didn't think we were going to see another Mark Price in the modern NBA for a variety of reasons.
Yeah.
There's a lot of similarities there. I do wonder, did we maybe overthink the number one pick quite a bit? Like, I think the Hawks, especially the Wizards to an extent with Sarr as well, were so fixated on trying to find the needle in the haystack, trying to find the superstar in the superstarless class, that they overlooked the guy in Reed Sheppard, who like has definitely at least one elite NBA skill, probably has two with the way that he generates steals. Mm-hmm. And the playmaking is like, it's not star level, but it's
not bad.
Very good. Like, it's somebody, I feel pretty confident that he can be at the very least a starting caliber NBA playmaker. I kind of think the Hawks might have overthought it. Like, maybe you just take the guy who's really good at the single most important skill in the NBA, which is shooting, and you say, okay, he doesn't fit with Trae Young. We'll figure it out later. You know what? You have Jalen Johnson. You have Dyson Daniels. You have Onyeka Okongwu. You have a lot of athleticism to cover.
By the way, needs to play more. Like, I've been calling for Onyeka Okongwu to play more. Like, Clint Capella.
Clint Capella's still on that team.
Thank you. This is you're coming up the works, man. This kid's good, and he should be getting more run. About Reed, though, I'm with you. I think that the other two teams, Washington and Atlanta, overthought this, but in the same way that I was telling you that I was an early adopter of OKC, I love young teams on the rise. The Rockets were super fun, especially when they went on that run last season. And I'm a big Alperen Şengün fan. I thought that they really hit on something with Amin Thompson last year when he went down, and they were using him as like a small five. Like, anyway, they have a lot of pieces, though, is my point here. And it's almost like, okay, you know, you go and bring in Fred VanVleet and now Dylan Brooks, and like, you've got a pretty deep rotation for a team that's like trying to get into the playoffs. How much run is Reed Sheppard going to get? Because the early returns are good here. I don't want to see him just gathering dust on the bench.
The Rockets have this really interesting young dynamic with the young guys on their team, where they don't have one like absolute guaranteed superstar that's going to bend the way that they play, right? Like, they played one way with Şengün in the lineup, and they played a totally different way after he got hurt. It's gonna kind of be like, especially with Ime Udoka as the coach, where he's just going to be like, you know, like, I don't have any defined, like, I don't have to bend the way I play to a single player. I'm going to put all of you on the court. We're going to see what combinations work, and we're going to go from there. And like, I look at the guards specifically, and all three of the combinations match up in these really interesting ways, where like, imagine Amin Thompson, who can't shoot at all, with Reed Sheppard, who might be better than Stephen Curry for all we know. Like, at least in summer league is to be believed.
But
like,
that pairing would be great.
You put Thompson with Green, and like, now you have maybe the most athletic backcourt in the NBA. Like, any combination of them, they're all interesting for different reasons. And I think the Rockets are just going to like, we have 8 of these really good young players. We can probably pay 4 or 5 of them down the line. So this year, in addition to like trying to leap up into the play-in and like actually be competitive, we're just trying to figure out what we have and like what combinations of them make sense. I don't think he's going to start, but I think like, I kind of just think he's so good that the shooting is going to be so valuable that he's going to find his way onto the court. I know Ime Udoka really favors defensive guys, but like,
yeah, that too.
You don't draft that guy at number 3 and not play him.
Like 25 minutes a game? I think that's reasonable.
Right. Like, I think he probably starts lower and builds up to that. Like, I think Udoka is one of those old school coaches. Like, I'm going to make my rookie earn it. So
yeah,
I suspect he's not going to get that at first, but I think that's where he ends up.
That is part of my concern. Producer Aaron wants to say that you probably need to pump the brakes on saying that he could be better as a shooter than Steph Curry. I say let it fly though. I like that you're letting your takes rip. Last one for you.
I hope the sarcasm was evident.
I mean, you shoot for the stars, Reed Sheppard. All right, last one for you on Summer League, just because I discussed this last night on HQ. I know that Trailblazers fans are sort of like indignant about this, and rightly so. This makes no sense to me. Maybe you can explain it. Why is Scoot Henderson not playing in Summer League? You have guys playing in Summer League right now. Jaime Jaquez is playing in Summer League. He was a playoff starter. Brandon Miller is playing in Summer League. Brandon Pajemski is playing in Summer League. You know what all 3 of those guys have in common? First team all rookie. You know who wasn't first team all rookie? Scoot Henderson, who out in the ether somewhere, not playing. And I know, I get it. A lot of people have been like, what's the big deal? 4 games in Vegas isn't going to make or break his development. And I will see that point. However, why wouldn't you want to do everything you possibly can do and play some basketball, maybe get out there with Donovan Clingan a little bit? This makes no sense to me.
Yeah, it doesn't really make sense to me either, unless he's like, is he recovering from an injury that like maybe wasn't
we don't know about
publicized? Like, I don't have a good reason for this. You talk about like Brandon Miller and Brandon Pajemski and Jaime Jaquez. It's kind of a tradition at Summer League where the really good rookie from the year before kind of comes in and plays 1 or 2 games and is incredible. And that's kind of their graduation ceremony from Summer League.
Yes.
Like, congratulations, you have proven that you are now too good for Summer League. Get out of here so we can play the undrafted types, the rookies, et cetera, et cetera. Scoot didn't even have that kind of year last year where you think like, no, he's beyond Summer League. Like, it was a pretty uneven rookie year. Like,
uneven is being kind.
Yeah, like there were a few moments down the stretch where like, okay, maybe starting to figure some things out. I would probably be thinking he needs every rep that he can get. I'm still very excited about his future.
Me too.
It doesn't make much sense to me that he wasn't playing, unless there's an injury that like they weren't hyping up as much, like that we don't know as much about. He should have been playing if he could.
If it's an injury that we don't know about, okay, fine. If it's just, nah, I'm good, then that's a problem for me, because I was really excited about Scoot Henderson entering the NBA. His athleticism is dynamic. I mean, he's a dynamic player, but he does have so many things he needs to work on. And look, it takes guards, especially ball dominant guards, time in the NBA to figure things out. So I would want him to pull all the levers he could possibly pull in order to do that and figure out what he's going to be in the NBA. And Vegas would be one of those things. And it's just disappointing. I was excited to see him in Vegas this year. Hey, what'd you work on in the offseason? Are we starting to see little glimmers of development from you? Because again, I was high on him, and like that first season, you called that uneven. Understatement. I mean, like, yeah, down the stretch, some flashes, but not enough for me. So Scoot Henderson, if you're out there, I know you're a big BTA fan. I don't know what you're doing, man. Get back out there. All right, we're going to take one more break. And then on the other side, we are going to discuss the Pelicans and Brandon Ingram and how it doesn't look like they're getting divorced yet. They're going to try to work this thing out. We'll do that next. This is Beyond the Arc.
There are some things in life that you can't quite explain.
An extraordinary story.
Maybe it sounds flawless, looks effortless, or makes you feel like a part of history.
The first ever goal for BFC.
And when all of those phenomenons come together, it's perfect. Pitch perfect.
All right, welcome back to Beyond the Arc on a Wednesday. John and CBS Sports NBA writer Sam Quinn here. If you're listening to us on a podcast, you can also check us out on our YouTube page. Find that at Beyond the Arc CBS. Please subscribe, hit the like button, and leave a comment. All right, Brandon Ingram, he's one of those guys, Sam, that he's going to want to get paid. He's in the final year of his deal, $36 million. He's eligible for 4 years at $208 million. Problem is, injured last season, down year, didn't acquit himself very well in the playoffs. I don't think he's going to get that max money that he wants. Our colleague James Herbert wrote a really good piece about this, but David Griffin, the president of basketball operations, did an interview with Sirius XM the other day and basically said that they prefer to keep Ingram. But the point here is that they prefer to keep him at a lower number, right? And also, I think he was hinting not so subtly, that the trade market, if there was a real good trade out there for somebody who wanted to grab Brandon Ingram, like the Pelicans could use a big. We'll get to that in a second. But if there was any sort of deal to be made here, we know Griff is not deal averse here. It kind of feels like they're going to go into the season with Brandon Ingram because neither side has any other choice. Yeah,
Brandon Ingram feels like maybe the first test case of how we're going to treat the max in this new CBA.
Mm-hmm.
Where he was an old world max. Like in the past, Brandon Ingram, like former all-star, like plays a premium position, great half-court shot creator late in games. Like, okay, those are the boxes you check to be a max player in the old world. Now, like, Jalen Brunson isn't making the max, and Jalen Brunson is a lot better than Brandon Ingram. I don't know. The situations aren't really comparable, but, like, you just look at Brandon Ingram and you say, like, am I excited to pay him $52 million a year when I'm also paying Zion the max, and I'm paying CJ McCollum for the next couple years, and I have Trey Murphy's rookie extension coming up, and I have DeJounte Murray's deal? Like, I don't know. I wouldn't be super excited about that, especially since Brandon Ingram has a lot of unexplored value, right? Like, he was a lot, I don't want to say was a lot better, but, like, I think you felt a lot better about his shot selection when he was taking 6 threes a game instead of he's been down to 4 the last couple of years. Like, he's shown a lot of playmaking in the past. The Lakers, like, experimented with him as a point guard for a little bit. I thought that was promising, but, like, the passing kind of comes and goes. The defense kind of comes and goes. Like, he has a lot of traits that you would think, like, this should be an every year all-star kind of guy, and it just hasn't really translated. So, like, I look at his contract situation and I say, we just traded for DeJounte Murray, and he's making $28 million a year. In a vacuum, like, I'm not sure that Ingram is better than Murray. He's more talented. He should be more productive. I'm not 100% sure I would rather have Ingram in a vacuum. So I just kind of look at that and I say, like, this becomes a lot more palatable for all parties involved when Ingram realizes that he's probably more of a $35 million a year player instead of a $50 million a year player. But we're still so early in this CBA cycle that I don't know if he's realized that. I don't know if his agent has realized that. So, like, are they going to keep playing this out to the string, like fighting for a contract that probably isn't there? My suspicion is yes, but I'm not 100% sure. Like, I don't know what kind of contract he thinks he's going to get.
I don't either. And you make really good points about the new CBA changing everything, really. And Griff basically said the same thing yesterday, where he said that the new CBA will make some players mechanically incapable of being traded. And I don't know that he was specifically referring to Brandon Ingram so much as he was talking about Brandon Ingram's contract. Should he be on a max money deal? Because, then all of a sudden there are restrictions if they end up in the first apron where they can't take back more money than they send out. And then the second apron where you can't aggregate salaries. And there's all these other restrictions that make team building like prohibitive when you bump into those first and second aprons. So you're seeing all these teams. The Clippers just did it with Paul George, where they're like, look, we'd love to have you back, but under these circumstances. And if you're not going to do that and you're going to insist on getting the max, then enjoy your time in Philadelphia. And by the way, to the Clippers, thank you for that. The market for Ingram, I think, is really interesting. Prior to this whole thing going down, I was thinking like, okay, the Cavs are looking for a wing and they've got the double bigs and maybe they unplug Jarrett Allen, and wouldn't he look nice in New Orleans, and some sort of swap there would make sense. But now with Kenny Atkinson rejoining Jarrett Allen in Cleveland, I don't think that's going to happen. What is even the market for Brandon Ingram? It's very confusing to me, as is, Sam, the Pelicans roster construction. I mentioned that they need a big because no Valanciunas anymore, no Larry Nance. Here's their team: DeJounte Murray and McCollum and ostensibly Ingram and Murphy and Jones. Tell me if a lot of these players sound familiar. Alvarado and Jordan Hawkins, right? You got alongside, I guess, like point center Zion. You got a lot of guards and wings, and then you've got Yves Missy and Daniel Tice as your centers. Like, it's a weird mix.
I feel like you don't make the Murray trade that they made unless you think you're getting a center some other way, and then it just didn't materialize, right? Like, you don't give away Nance and then not sign Valanciunas unless you're pretty confident that you're going to get a center back in whatever Ingram trade that you make, and then that trade just didn't ultimately come. I don't know what their starting lineup is going to be next year. I guess what they're going to probably have to do is like Herb Jones, congratulations, you're defending centers every single night now. You're not going to get any rebounds if Zion is your quote-unquote point center. You're not going to be able to protect. I mean, like, look, Herb Jones is an incredible defender however you use him.
Yes,
I wouldn't advise a team to just strictly say, like, you're playing center defensively now. Like, that doesn't seem ideal. It sort of feels like, I don't know about both sides because Ingram just wants to get paid first and foremost, but, like, the Pelicans are ready to move on to the iteration of their team where Trey Murphy is starting alongside Zion and Herb Jones is like the three wings. Having Ingram there really kind of throws a roadblock in.
Yes.
I look at what the Clippers did with Paul George is really instructive in that, look, in the old world, you just signed the guy and you traded him later, right? Like, that was the Wizards with Bradley Beal. That was like, a bunch of different guys where you just say, we're not losing the asset for free. I think the Pelicans are rightly looking at this and saying, Brandon Ingram has an injury history. Brandon Ingram does not fit on every single team in the league. There is a chance that if we sign him to a contract, like David Griffin said, it's mechanically untradeable. Like, there's a chance you sign into that contract and you can't move it. You're stuck with him. And like, look, being stuck with a good player, there are worse fates. That's not a market that can afford to be stuck with a contract like that. Trey Murphy, I think, is just better. And Trey Murphy is going to get expensive pretty soon.
Yes,
that's a scary situation. I do have a team that I want to throw out for Ingram. I'm curious about your take.
Okay.
I want him in Heat culture. I want him on a team that's going to force it. It's going to look at him saying like, oh, I only want to take these kinds of shots. And like, I only want to defend some of the time. You don't get away with that in Miami. Like, no, you have to buy in and do everything. I would be really interested in seeing him with the Heat. They could obviously use a little bit more half-court shot creation. I'd throw that out there. Like, I was about to say they don't have that many trade assets given the picks they've traded in the past.
Yeah, what's the exchange?
Yeah, I guess you're probably doing something where, like, some picks are going to a third party and a center is going to the Pelicans. You have to match money. I guess, like, Hero or maybe Rozier is the main money match there. It's kind of a tough deal to construct. But at this point, like, there just aren't that many fits out there for him, right? Like, maybe it was Sacramento before DeMar DeRozan. Now really doesn't make sense. Good. Cleveland, I guess I see what they're getting at. Like, okay, you have too many guards, too many bigs, and no wings in between. You balance out the roster a little bit. Like, it does make some sense to me. I think they very much the best version of that team is going to be Donovan Mitchell running the offense as the point guard, Evan Mobley as the center, and then everyone in between is just high volume threes and a lot of defense. You need a little bit more shot creation in there. I don't know if you need another max level shot creator. So I see the fit. It's just, do you really want to be paying him as like the third best player on your team close to max money? No. I think there's a lot of hesitance there. So it's really hard to find a fit. Like, I don't see anything. Maybe that changes by the deadline, or like maybe a situation like you get to free agency next summer and Detroit has like max cap space and, well, we don't have anything to do with this and we don't have to give up assets to get him. So like, why don't we just sign him for the max? Like, sure. I don't see an obvious fit. And like, I think it's going to end up just being a team that has a bunch of space that says like, well, we're not doing anything else with it. We might as well have Brandon Ingram.
The Detroit example there is the extended Tobias Harris deal. Like, sure, Tobias Harris, you can have this money because we don't have anything else to do with it. That's why I mentioned the Cavs, because I sat there one day and I was like, God, like, okay, Brandon Ingram doesn't work here. He doesn't work there. I had Sacramento on my list and that went out the door, as you mentioned, with DeMar DeRozan. And I like the list gets real thin, real fast. And especially because you were talking about bringing in a third team. That's probably something that Griffin was looking at, and that makes it much more complicated. And like there isn't that much of a market for him anyway. I think it's going to get pretty like, look, they can delude themselves, Ingram and his agent, all they want into, hey, we want this deal. But as Griff mentioned in that radio interview, the old world was you get a max and you get a max and you get a max. The new world is, I guess, if you're PG, you leave and go somewhere else because you can't get the max from your team because they don't want to be up against the first or second apron. And that's exactly where I think Ingram and his agent eventually will realize, like, we're not going to probably get this money. So if we're not, where do we want to be? We're still going to get paid some, we're going to be paid pretty well, but do we want to be in New Orleans or not? I think that's what it's going to come down to.
Yeah, the PG max, I almost look at that as a circumstantial max where it had less to do with like, we think Paul George is the max player and more to do with the fact that like we have Joel Embiid who's 30 and probably doesn't have the longest runway. Like we just have to maximize our odds right now. He is the best player out there. We're going to pay him what it takes. I don't think there's like a circumstantial slot out there for Ingram in that same way. I don't think that there's any team in the league that is going to tell itself, we are one Brandon Ingram away from winning the championship in the way that the Sixers like really were with Paul George.
Yeah.
Like, they are right in the middle of the championship mix now. Like they weren't before. I don't think such a team exists for Brandon Ingram. And if that team does exist, it probably doesn't have a max cap slot to work with. You mentioned Cleveland. I want to throw something out there. There's been no buzz about this. There's been no reporting. I don't think it's going to happen at all. I just want to throw out, I would be trying to get Lauri Markkanen back instead of getting Brandon Ingram for them. That is like the real fit. And like, I do wonder if you really just put Garland and Allen out there now and said, we're going to get as many assets as humanly possible for those two, and then we're going to flip them to Utah for Lauri Markkanen back. He is the perfect third guy. You need somebody with a little bit of size who can be a 4 next to Evan Mobley, but like imagine the spacing of having Mobley as your center, Markkanen as your 4, and then just having defensive guards with Mitchell as your point guard. Like that's the fit I like most. I don't think it's going to happen, but like
no.
I do sort of look at this from Cleveland's perspective, and I say like, you probably are eventually going to have to break up Garland, Mitchell, and Mobley and Allen, but that does leave you with 2 very good players to trade. Like, I think you can aim a little bit higher than Brandon Ingram, who's a positional fit, but maybe not so much like a basketball fit.
Yeah, no, I'm with you that Lauri Markkanen would be amazing. I don't think it's going to happen either. I did enjoy that weird year where they just had all 3 of those guys in the front court.
Yep.
Where they're like, and also Kevin Love still being there, and they're just like they were running this 4 big rotation that didn't really work, but also kind of did and was fun, and they were trying to figure out what it was. But ultimately, it needs to be one of the guards and one of the bigs, and then 3 shooters, and then you figure it out from there. But they do have those 2 really good pieces if they decide to unplug one or both of those guys. If it's both, for sure, you got to shoot higher than Brandon Ingram. If it's just one, then it makes more sense to me. But Brandon Ingram, I apologize for all the Brandon Ingram slander that we just did on the show. I actually really like him. Really nice guy. I'm rooting for him. I just don't think he's going to get 4 for 208. Sam, speaking of nice guys, you're a nice guy. This was wonderful. I just realized, by the way, that you are wearing a button-down shirt and a jacket. And I look like I just got back from like an intramural game.
I didn't know. Were we on HQ dress code? Like
this is dress down show. I like that you're classing up the joint, though. It's really nice of you. We appreciate you going to the extra effort. Tell people what you got cooking. You just wrote something. You're always writing something, but what do you have out there right now?
Yeah, I just wrote about the Lauri Markkanen situation with the Warriors and Jazz today. That's up on CBSSports.com. I'm writing something about Mikal Bridges now that will hopefully be out either later today or tomorrow. I've always got a million things coming. I'm going to do off-season grades soon enough. I'm going to finally sit down and like share all of my thoughts on the Lakers. That'll be 9,000 words of my disappointment. That's coming up. So a lot of cool stuff. It's all going to be on CBSSports.com.
Check out all of his stuff. And also he's on Twitter. He's an excellent basketball follow. It's just your name, right? Sam Quinn?
At Sam Quinn CBS.
Sam Quinn CBS. There you go. But go and follow him. Sam's excellent at this. Thank you so much. We're going to have you back for sure next time Ashley or Bill are out. Ashley or Bill, I'm not sure which, will be back on Friday. I will not. But for now, for Sam Quinn, I am John Gonzalez. Thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. We'll see you next time.